Good afternoon. This is Ed Pozzuoli with the Tripp continuing series of webinars. Today, we're with Senator George LeMieux. George, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
And how's it feel to be back in Broward?
Oh, it's great.
And we have congratulations are in order as you and Mikey celebrate your fourth child.
We have a baby girl. It took 4 tries, but we finally got the girl. So baby Madeline was born at the end of April, and we're thrilled to have her.
George, so U.S. Senate, I mean, my gosh, just an unbelievable ride for you. How's it been up there, sitting at the right hand of all this power?
Well, it's a great honor, Ed. To go to the Capitol every morning and see that big dome and realize that I represent 18.5 million Floridians in the United States Senate, the world's greatest, institution for debate and democracy, is a real privilege. So I feel very fortunate to be there.
So tell me some of the challenges that you face up there and some of the challenges that you've seen in working through the process and some of the major issues.
Well, the most amazing thing is the debt. When I was in Tallahassee working for the governor, and when I was in business at a law firm trying to make ends meet, we only could spend as much money as we took in. Novel concept.
Right.
It's what all Florida families have to do, right? They sit around tables like this and they make those decisions, especially in tough economic times, about what we're going to cut because we don't have the revenues that we used to have. Well, not so in the federal government. We just keep spending more and more and keep printing more and more money. So now we're to the point for this current year's budget, we're going to take in $2.2 trillion, but we're going to spend $3.8 trillion.
Wow.
So $1.6 trillion in debt in just 1 year's time. We've run the national debt now to $13 trillion. We are spending so much more than we're taking in that debt is cascading. That $1 trillion was added in the time that I've been there, the brief time. It took us 190 plus years to go the first $1 trillion in debt, and we just did it in less than 9 months. So we've got to get some fiscal restraint.
Well, what can we do to change that?
Well, it's really not rocket science. It just takes a little courage and conviction. If we went back to 2007 level spending, which is the year before we went into the recession, we didn't start the recession until December of 2007, and we capped our spending at 2007 levels. If we did that for 10 years, by 2013, we would balance the budget. By 2020, we would cut the national debt in half. So instead of having a $13 trillion debt, our national debt would be just over $6 trillion. And it's not going to be 13, by the way. If we keep spending the way we're spending, it's going to be 22, 23, 25 trillion. And at that point, we're spending almost $1 billion a year in interest payments alone, and the government fails. We become Greece at that point.
But how do we become Greece? That's not a good thing. How do we make Washington more accountable? I mean, because everybody is frustrated, or so it seems. There's a lot of frustration in the state of Florida particularly, but the electorate, I've never seen such frustration out there. How do we address that? I mean, how do we make Washington more accountable?
There are things we have to do that are not going to be politically popular. Nobody wants to see benefits reduced. Everybody wants to see taxes down and benefits up. Well, that's not going to happen. We've lived in a world too long where we've spent way too much. So we've got to stop spending as much as we're spending. We've got to have some real fiscal discipline. If we do that, it's not going to be that painful. It'll take a little bit of pain, but we can get it done.
And how do we allow people or expect people to stop relying so much on the government and rely on private businesses and themselves, frankly? How do we do that?
Well, there's going to have to be a culture shift, but it shouldn't be too much of a shift because that's the way it always was in this country. I mean, we were the folks who pulled ourselves up by our own bootstraps. We didn't expect things from the government. We all expected to work hard, pay taxes, have the country keep us free and safe, and if we kept our commitment to America, America would give us the opportunity to provide a better place for our kids and our grandkids. We got to get back to that sense and feeling of self-reliance. Right now, 47% of Americans pay no taxes. We're in a world where things are upside down, where we're creating a lot of people who are benefiting from entitlements but not paying into the system. We got to change that back to the way it used to be. It wasn't that long ago that things were right.
So based on that, what would your formula be about driving down the now 12% unemployment rate in the state of Florida?
What I want to do in terms of Washington policies, one is if we cut our spending, there'll be more investment in this country because we'll be a better investment. Money right now, foreign money is going to places like Brazil because they're seen as a better, up-and-coming, exciting place to do business. If we can get our fiscal house in order, I think that's going to create more opportunities for businesses to succeed. But also, I wanted to cut the taxes that we pay on workers. I wanted to give every employer a 3% payroll cut and every employee a 3% payroll cut. That would be a 3% raise for every American and 3% off for every business person that they could use to buy more equipment, hire new employees. Now, I didn't get a lot of traction with that. I mean, although that would have cost a lot of money, that would have been money going back into the pockets of American businesses and American workers. Instead, we just create new programs that we can't afford and push those expenses off to our children and our grandchildren.
How do we get support for that? Because it seems to me that that 3% or payroll reduction or payroll tax reduction would directly impact in a positive way small businesses who would then hire an additional person or two. And that cascade hopefully would drive down our unemployment rate.
Well, you would hope. And I think that's what you need is people with common sense ideas. These are not, as I said before, it's not rocket science. If you put more money back in people's pockets, they're going to spend that money out in the marketplace, and that's going to create jobs. We've got a huge small business component in this state, 1.9 million small businesses in Florida. We're not a big business state. We've got some big businesses we're proud of, but the engine that fuels Florida is small businesses. We should be finding every way possible to, one, get out of their way, and two, give them some tax breaks to put money back in their pocket. Instead, we do things like this healthcare reform legislation, which is going to hurt them. What Washington is doing with all these initiatives, from financial reform to healthcare reform, is freezing their businesses. Right. Their businesses have such uncertainty that they can't decide what they should or should not do. They're worried about this healthcare reform legislation. If I hire another employee, am I going to get fined? Right. What does this mean for my business? So what you're really doing is you're hurting the work sector now, and you're keeping people from hiring people, which is exactly the wrong thing in a time of a recession like this.
Clearly. Let me change subjects. The Gulf and the oil spill, the BP oil spill. Earlier on television this morning, I heard that you were somewhat critical of the administration and address what can be done about this oil spill, because we're now in day 40, 41, 42, whatever it is, and it seems like there's no end in sight.
Well, I do not want to be in a situation where we're waiting for these relief wells to be drilled and it's the end of August before that happens. And remember, that's the time frame they're telling us.
Right.
That's the best it's going to be. We can't have oil spilling out at 20,000 barrels a day potentially until the end of August. That is going to fill the entire Gulf of Mexico with oil. It's going to get into the loop current. It's going to bring it up the east coast of Florida all the way up to maybe up to as far as Vero. That is not something that Florida can handle. We are going to ruin our ecosystems. We're going to ruin our beaches. Potentially, we're going to get oil into the Everglades, into Florida Bay, into our coral reefs. What I want to see is I want to see this president be a leader. I want to see this president on the ground in the Gulf of Mexico, not just twice in order to do some photo ops. I want to see him like Jeb Bush was during our hurricanes in 94 and 95. 12, 14, 16 hours a day at the Emergency Operations Center.
Driving a solution. Secretary
Napolitano, Secretary Salazar, Lubchenco over at NOAA. We didn't elect those people. We elected Barack Obama. He needs to lead.
Senator, your term as a U.S. Senator from Florida runs soon. What does the future hold for George LeMieux?
Well, Mikey and I and our 4 kids, Max, Taylor, Chase, and Madeline, are moving back to Broward. We've been living in Tallahassee for the last 6 years, which we've enjoyed, but it's time to come home. With such a big family, it's going to be nice to be around grandparents and friends who can help us. But we'll have to see. I've been so honored and privileged to represent the people of Florida in the Senate. It's really the honor of my life to do this. And I would like to do public service again, but I want to come home and get my family situated, serve out this term to the best of my ability, and then see where the future takes me.
Well, George, for one, I'm honored to call you my friend. And whether it's been as vice chair of the Republican Party or chair of the Republican Party or Deputy Attorney General or Chief of Staff to the Governor, and now U.S. Senator, you are my friend. I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, George.